आवाज से बताओ, देखो नमो नारायणाय, आवाज से बताओ, पता हो जाती है। तो गंगोर वेदांत की क्लास में अभी शुरू हो जाते, चलो। ओके, so I'm going to do silence, share some. No, yeah, no, I don't need to do any of that. Okay. Yes, here we are. Hit on this. Oh, before that, stop share. दूसरा ना प्रेयर बोलना पड़ता है पहले। सी प्रेयर बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होती है, उसके कारण हमारे, बिकॉज ये क्लासेस में बहुत बाधाएं आती है, या बाहर की बाधाएं आती है या अपना मन की बाधाएं आती है, तो दोनों को शांत रखने के लिए प्रेयर होती है। सो प्रेयर बिफोर द क्लास इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। वी आर आस्किंग लॉर्ड्स ब्लेसिंग, क्योंकि अद्वैत वेदांत सुनना ही बड़ा रेयर है, और सुनने के टाइम में ऑल टाइप ऑफ ऑब्स्टिकल्स कैन कम। सो वी डू प्रे। श्रुति स्मृति पुराणानाम आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शंकरं लोकशंकरं, शंकरं शंकराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्य कृतौ वंदे भगवन्तो पुनः पुनः। सदाशिव समारंभां शंकराचार्य मध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वंदे गुरु परंपराम्। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेद विभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्त देहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ओम शांति शांति शांति। Okay, start with reading the verses. Okay, एकदम ऊपर हो गया. Okay, Anad. So we are starting from verse number 13. Okay, Anadya vidya nirvachya karanopadiruchyate upadi tritaya danyam atmanam avadarye पंचकोशादियोगेन तत्तन्मय इव स्थितः शुद्धात्मा नीलवस्त्रादि योगेन स्फटिको यथा वपुस्तुषादिभिः कोशैः युक्तं युक्त्यवघाततः आत्मानम् अन्तरं शुद्धं विविच्यात् तण्डुलं यथा पंचकोशादियोगेन तत्तन्मय इव स्थितः शुद्धात्मा नीलवस्त्रादि योगेन स्फटिको यथा वपुस्तुषादिभिः कोशैः युक्तं युक्त्यवघाततः आत्मानम् अन्तरं शुद्धं विविच्या तण्डुलं यथा। ये तो रिपीट हो गई ना। सदा सर्वगतोऽप्यात्मा न सर्वत्रावभासते बुद्धावेवावभासेत स्वच्छेषु प्रतिबिम्बवत् देहेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धे प्रकृतिभ्यो विलक्षणं तद्वृत्ति साक्षिणं विद्यात् आत्मानं राजवत् सदा व्यापृतेष्विन्द्रियेष्वात्मा व्यापारी वा विवेकिनां दृश्यते भ्रेषु धावत्सु धावन्निव यथा शशि आत्मचैतन्यमाश्रित्य। I think this I'm not sure we did last. Let's look at this. Okay, so we go back to verse number 17. We were looking at 18, 19. Then in verse number 17 क्या हुआ कि प्रोसेस ऑफ विवेक बताया कि आप जानो कि द सेल्फ इज विलक्षणम, इट इज डिस्टिंक्ट फ्रॉम व्हाट? बॉडी, माइंड, सेंसेस एंड द वर्ल्ड. So how should you know that it is the Sakshi, it is the witness, it is the passive observer, okay, of whatever is going on in your mind, of all the vrittis, whatever is happening in the mind, it is the Sakshi of that, okay, and it is the Sakshi of what is happening in the world also. Actually speaking, body is part of the world. Body mind we cannot really separate from the world. But ठीक है, इसमें ऐसे बोला है. Okay. Now, the idea of Atma being distinct from the body-mind sense complex is now extended to activities of the body-mind sense complex and activities of the world. Okay? So, for both of these, it is extended. Okay. That is in verse number 18. उसमें क्या बोला? The people who don't have viveka, जिसके पास विवेक नहीं है, what do they think? They think that Atma has activities. Atma is doing activities. Therefore, they think that I am a karta, I think. People who don't have viveka, they think like that. Okay? Why? And why do they think like that? Because they are superimposing the activities which belong to the body mind sense complex. Activities belong to body, they belong to mind and senses. Those activities वो लोग आत्मा के ऊपर, in Hindi what will is it? They throw it on Atma. They superimpose it on Atma. That means they think Atma is a karta. It's a doer. And what Shastra is saying is that they are imagining Atma to be a doer, meaning if you think Atma is a doer, it is an error. Ye Bhagwan, this Vedant becomes very tough, when it comes to this, कि बता देता है कि तुम गलती कर रहे हो, तुम करता नहीं हो. Okay? So in the last class, we were seeing how, let me get out of this. Okay? So last class में हम लोग क्या देख रहे थे? कि जब इस तरह की मिस्टेक होती है कि हमारे पास विवेक नहीं है और हम बॉडी माइंड को we take it to be ourselves, then it causes us lot of pain, causes of lot of distress. एक एग्जाम्पल लिया था, पहले तो ब्रोकन चेयर बोला, ठीक है, हमें विवेक नहीं है कि चेयर इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम मी, और चेयर की एक, if one leg of the chair breaks off, then what do I think? I think that I have broken leg. If viveka is not there between me and the chair. Now supposing viveka is not there between me and the body, same thing we are extending. Now the body's leg breaks. And when the body's leg break, what do I think? I think that my leg has broken, right? So whenever I ascribe the problem to I, myself, then I don't like problems. I feel sad if I think I have a problem. So all the shoka that we have, Vedanta points out, is because of superimposition. Now, this becomes very difficult to accept. But I will again ask you, let's look at hakikat. What is hakikat? एक तो बॉडी में चेंज होती है, माइंड के अंदर चेंज होती है, दोनों माइंड के अंदर चेंज होती है. ये चेंज हमें कैसे पता होगा अनलेस देयर इज अ चेंजलेस रेफरेंस, करेक्ट? और वो क्योंकि मुझे पता हो रहा है ना, तो वो चेंजलेस रेफरेंस कहाँ होना पड़ा? Where will the changeless reference have to be? It will have to be with me only. It is me only. Iti. And therefore Shastra is pointing out कि विवेक की जरूरत है, क्योंकि अभी तक हमने बहुत, we have been mistaking a lot, making lot of mistakes, okay? Thinking that what is changing is myself, when the reality is what is not changing is the consciousness that I am, is the truth of me. If we are able to do this viveka, we become free. Iti. So what happens if this viveka is not there? Then the mind is full of so many emotions. Mind can have sadness, mind can have anxiety. This is the biggest problem of the mind in current age and current this thing. Today I was listening to one talk of in these days and times, apparently COVID ke baad, one of the biggest problems of the mind is loneliness. World over, what was earlier at 20% is now 44 or 46%. People say that we are feeling very lonely. So many of these feelings and vrittis which are in the mind, if we don't know that they belong to the mind, then we say, I am sad, I am lonely. Iti. So we are ascribing it to ourselves, and that is the reason for all the sorrow that we have. Iti. Whereas if we understand that I am consciousness, that is vilakshanam, that is independent of the mind, then I have freedom to address what is happening in my mind. बहुत freedom आ जाती है. It gives so much of freedom, no? Because now you observe, okay, yeah, this problem is there. It's in my mind. Once you're not ascribing it to yourself, then you are firstly able to admit that you have it. That मेरे mind में ये problem है. ये बोल पाते हैं, नहीं तो हम उसको avoid करते हैं, उससे भागते हैं, उसको देखना हम पसंद नहीं करते हैं. अभी आप बोल पाते हैं, हाँ मेरे अंदर एंजाइटी है, मेरे मन में एंजाइटी है. एक बार आपने एटलीस्ट एडमिट किया तो फिर उसको एड्रेस कर सकते हैं. ओके. दूसरी, और यू कैन चूज कि चलो यार, इट इज माइंड ओनली, क्या है, रहने दो. Some yogis say that any emotion, any mood will last only for 2.5 days maximum. उसके बाद तो वो जाना ही है वैसे भी. तो कोई भी आपके अंदर एंजाइटी आ गई, वो 2.5 days के लिए ज्यादा से ज्यादा रहेगा, फिर वो अपने आप गायब हो जाएगी और कोई इमोशन आ जाएगी, क्योंकि मन की वही है नेचर, इट इज टू चेंज. तो वो अपने आप को चेंज कर देती है कैसे भी. इति. सो चॉइस इज देयर इन योर हैंड. इति. So what was the example he gave in verse number 18? He said, just as we are taking the moon, we are taking the movement of the clouds. Actually, the clouds are moving and we think we are ascribing it to the moon. In the same way, the vrittis are taking place in the mind and we are ascribing it to consciousness. Iti. Then in verse number 19, we saw he was saying that even though Atma has no activity in it, वर्स नंबर 18 में बताया कि आत्मा में कोई भी एक्टिविटी नहीं है. ठीक है. तो वर्स नंबर 19 में क्या बताया? भले ही आत्मा में कोई भी एक्टिविटी नहीं है, पर मन की कोई भी एक्टिविटी, नो एक्टिविटी ऑफ द माइंड इज पॉसिबल विदाउट द प्रेजेंस ऑफ आत्मा. ओके. विदाउट प्रेजेंस ऑफ आत्मा, no activity of the mind is possible. So look at this, a strange relationship is coming. Atma is independent of the mind, but mind is not independent of Atma. Okay. Mind is totally dependent on Atma, because Atma only is there to illumine the mind and to enliven the mind. Okay. And he gave an example there, just like the activities of all the people are dependent upon sunlight. In the same way, the activities of our mind and body are dependent upon this consciousness. Okay, now we look at this verse number 20. Dehendriya gunan karmanyamale satchidatmani adhyasyantya vivekena gagane nilatadivata. Wow. So again, Shankaracharya, he never gives up saying, what is Viveka and what is lack of Viveka. He says, owing to lack of Viveka, avivekena, the people who are ignorant, okay, what do? Adhyasyanti. They superimpose, they project. Iti. What do they project? Deha Indriya Gunan Karmani. They project Gunan, the attributes, and Karmani, the actions of what? Deha and Indriya on what? Amale. Amale. Mala means dirt, color, taint. Amale, the one which is not tainted, which is very pure. So they are superimposing on, projecting it on Atma, who is completely pure, who is of the nature of Satchit, Satchid Atmani, who is of the nature of existence, absolute existence, changeless existence, and consciousness or knowledge. And how do people do it? Just as if you look at the space has no color actually. But it looks, if you look at the space or sky, it has no color. But it looks blue to us. And we say blue sky. But actually, it is not blue. So just like we are superimposing blueness on the sky, in the same way, because of aviveka, people are superimposing the activities of the deha and the indriya on Atma, who is completely pure, okay, has got no such activity at all, okay. So here, Shankaracharya only said deha indriya. That means, what about the attributes of mind? What about the activities of the mind? No, manas is included in indriya, because indriya also means karana. Karana means an instrument. And manas, you know very well, is called as antakarana, the inner instrument. So when he says the word indriya, manas should also be included. Mana, the mind should also be included within the word indriya. So the dehendriya means the body, mind, okay, sense complex. It has got guna and karma. Guna is attributes, karma is action, okay. So the body has got attribute like what? Gender, age, color, right? State of health, etc. And indriya means, indriya gunas would be attributes of the mind and senses. Iti. For example, like being happy, sad, agitated, all those are mana gunas, right? And what is karma? Karma is all the activities or actions which are taking place, okay, in the body mind. So Shankaracharya here is saying that these attributes of the body mind complex, the activities of them, adhyasyanti, they are superimposed, projected, like on the movie screen, there is nothing. The movie screen does not contain the movie in it. The movie has to be projected on the movie screen, right? And the movie screen is not affected at all by the movie which is projected on it. In the same way, because of aviveka, we project on Atma, meaning we think that Atma has got. Okay, Atma is actually clear, totally pure, amale, iti, but we are projecting the activities and the attributes of the body-mind sense complex on Atma, okay? And amale, free of all impurity, Satchidatmani, Sat, that which is ever existent, that which never goes out of existence, which is ever the same. Chit, consciousness. So consciousness which is ever existent and ever pure, which is Nitya Shuddha. On such a consciousness, we are superimposing the activities of the Deha and the Mana. So Sat, we can again look at real, unborn, uncreated, unchanging. Chit, of course, consciousness. Okay. So on the real, unborn, uncreated, conscious, Nitya Shuddha self, which is utterly unaffected by the problems of the body, mind, sense complex, these activities and these attributes are superimposed. So we are back with our dear friend superimposition, you know, exactly like what? Like the orange, like the crystal on the orange. Ah, aaj to orange hi dikh raha hai. Badhiya. Eh? Okay. So exactly, so this color of the cloth got superimposed on the crystal. Iti. What about the crystal? It is clear. Even when the superimposition is going on, superimposition is going on right now. Even at that time, the crystal is completely clear. There is nothing in it. Okay? It's Nitya Shuddha iti. So, now for example, I say I am eating. I am walking. Okay? If I say I am eating, I am walking. What is eating? What is walking? Body is eating. Body is walking, eating. Does consciousness eat? Does consciousness walk? So, consciousness is the truth of the word I. When we say I means consciousness. Which kind of consciousness? Amale, Satchidatma. Okay, Nitya Shuddha Satchit Atma. Iti, that is what consciousness. The word I refers to consciousness. Iti. So the ultimate meaning of the pronoun I is our essential nature as consciousness. So supposing I say I walked into the room, that means I am superimposing the action of the body on consciousness which does not do any action at all. Iti. If I say I am short-sighted, okay, then my eyes are having the problem and I'm superimposing the problem of the eye on consciousness. Okay, I can superimpose if I want, right? Like the orange can get superimposed. But does consciousness get affected by my superimposition? Nothing happens to consciousness. The only one who suffers is me. The one who is identified, that person suffers. I say I have lot of tension, I have lot of pain. Iti. So the pain and tension belongs to what? It belongs to the body and mind, not to consciousness. So the key word here is amale. Amala. Mala, I told you, is impurity. Amala means free of impurity. Iti. Nitya Shuddha. So consciousness is the unchanging witness, right? The unchanging presence in whom, in whose presence all these attributes and all these activities, they are illumined. Okay? Activities of the body, mind, they are illumined. They are superimposed. And at the time of superimposed, it's because of consciousness that they are illumined. Okay? So we must understand that superimposition is the heart of the problem of emotional suffering, human suffering. Here we are not talking about physical pain, okay? Because pain is a physical sensation in the body. It belongs to the body. When we say the word suffering, we mean the emotional pain, the mental pain which is caused by taking ourselves to be what we are not. जो मैं नहीं हूं, मैं अपने आप को समझती हूं, तो उसके कारण जो दुख मुझे होता है, जो मन दुख मुझे होता है, उसी को हम सफरिंग बोलते हैं. ओके? And that suffering is caused only because of superimposing. What do we superimpose? The limitations of what we are not on what we are. Iti. So if I know clearly that the problems of my body, they belong to the body. They don't belong to me. Then the emotional suffering is not there. Then it is just, as we saw last time, it is only a situation and I must attend to that situation. Body will still need attention and I can give it the attention it needs. So very important to make this difference between pain and suffering. Pain is a sensation, body ki sensation hai. Suffering is our emotional response to that sensation. Pain can be managed. Different methods. First thing in pain, no, learn to relax. Every day, really, every one of us should give time to just relax. Allow the body to relax. Because wherever there is anxiety, the body cannot relax. The body naturally tenses up. All the cells become tight. It causes inflammation in the body and there is pain. So the first thing is to learn to relax every cell in the body. And the best way is to smile, smile to every single cell. Say I love you to every cell. भले कोई आपको नहीं बोल रहे आई लव यू, आप अपने आप को बोला करो आई लव यू में, अपने हर एक सेल को बोला करो. It's a very beautiful method of relaxing. It's very, very important. This relaxing of the body, okay, can help a lot with pain. Then I'm talking about pain now, okay, not suffering. Why we get pain? One is because we are tense, we get pain. Tension causes inflammation. Inflammation causes pain. Becoming aware of the emotional triggers behind the physical pain. That means becoming aware of the tension which is there behind the physical pain. So many times, people who are Vedantis, वो लोग बोलते रहेंगे कि I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. Okay, but body is feeling tense. पूरे पिछले संस्कार तो है ना. There is tension. So best thing that you can do is first learn to identify the tension in your body. Learn to scan your body. Become aware of the tension which is there. Where all in your body the tension is there. It will tell you about your mind in due course. Iti. And learn to relax it. Iti. So even by becoming sensitive to our body, we can become sensitive to what are our emotional triggers. कौन सी वस्तु हमें ट्रिगर करती है? हम उसको तो नकार तो कर देंगे ही नहीं, आई एम नॉट द बॉडी, आई एम नॉट द माइंड, ये सब बोल देंगे, पर because old samskar is there, it will trigger. So begin to understand. We become very sensitive people. Okay, learn to manage those triggers. Sometimes dietary change is required. जैसे जिस लोग को बहुत दर्द है बोलते कि खट्टा मत खाओ, फिर जिसको आर्थराइटिस है बोलते हैं कि ये उड़द दाल मत खाया करो, उसकी वड़ा मत खाओ. Don't take things like rajma, which give lot of gas. So dietary changes may be required. Movement is required. Whole day sitting and doing japa and this thing will not work. You have to move your body. Or Bhagwan gave this body so that it will move. So all this we need to do, and if nothing works, finally, painkillers are there. So pain can be managed and should be managed. Okay. And we can develop the skill to manage our pain. Where is self-knowledge? What will it do? Self-knowledge releases us from suffering. Because the suffering is due to superimposition of the limitations, the attributes and activities. Their limitations we superimpose upon I, and then we feel sad. So the truth is, experiences are very misleading. Just as the experience of this orangeness in crystal, Experiences are misleading. वो बड़े बड़े letters में लिख लो. Experiences are misleading. जो क्या बोलते हैं, अनुभूति, जो अनुभूति होती है, it can be अनुभव जो होती है, it can be misleading. जैसे कि experience of orangeness in the crystal can make you think that the crystal is orange. You will think, oh, this crystal is orange colored. Iti. In the same way, experience of pain in the body, the experience of sadness and anxiety in the mind, they can be very misleading if we do not have viveka. So we need viveka. We need to know that pain belongs to the body, sadness belongs to the mind, anxiety belongs to the mind, and the consciousness that we are is nitya shuddha, it's amalaha. It is taintless. It is unaffected by the pain in the body or the sadness in the mind. And the metaphor given by Shankaracharya is Gagane Neelatadivata. You know, Gagane Neelatadivata, just as we say blue sky. So the blueness is superimposed on space. Space is colorless, but the sky looks blue. Why does it look blue? Because there are many gases, the light is coming and the sunlight is being filtered through many gases and different particles. And blue light is what is being, scattered the most. And therefore, we are looking at space and thinking it is blue, when actually it is not blue, Okay. So experiences are misleading. There's no such thing as blue sky. It is just it is like this orange crystal. Iti. It requires viveka. We are experiencing the blue sky, all right. But we require viveka to know that in spite of my experience of the blue, sky, the space is colorless. Actually, the sky, which is actually the space, is colorless. Iti. Now, superimposition is due to proximity, right? When it is close, then it looks like there is, if I put it far away, then there is no superimposition. Only when it is close to the orange cloth, there is superimposition, right? Blueness is separate from space, we know that, but still, we experiencing the blue space because it's very close. Orange crystal, there is closeness, right? We saw if the crystal is at a distance, this is close, looks orange. If it's at a distance, doesn't look orange. Iti. Same way, what is the distance between sadness and consciousness? The sadness which is in the mind and the consciousness, what is the distance? There is no distance. Sadness is occurring in the mind and consciousness is there illumining it. Right? Sadness is there. Supposing this is sadness and this is consciousness. Okay? Consciousness is illumining the sadness. What is the distance? There is no distance. And therefore, we get this misleading experience. Okay? And superimposition is taking place and we are having a misleading experience. Okay. So here the key word was amala. The word was amale, that which is absolutely pure. And that word can be taken for both space and consciousness. Just as space is free of any color, it is free of any taint, free of any gandagi. Similarly, consciousness is also free of any coloring from the mind. Okay? So just as space is colorless, taintless, blueness is superimposed on it, so too on consciousness, which is utterly clear, utterly pure, the attributes and activities of the body, mind, senses are superimposed. Okay. So the next verse. Ajnanan manasopadehe kartritvadini chatmane kalpyante mbukate chandre chalanadi yathambasah. Yatha, just as. Ambasah chalanadi. the movement, okay, that is chalanadi of the water, the movement in the water, ambugate chandre kalpyante, is superimposed on the reflection of the moon which is obtaining in the water. So too, tatha, the sense of doership, kartritvadi, okay, which actually belong to manasopadehe, kartritvadi, the kartritvadi which belongs to the upadhi of the mind, it is superimposed on the self, atmani kalpyante, superimposed on the self, due to what? Ajnanat, due to ignorance. So often we take ourselves to be the doer, the karta. I will say, I did this, I did that, I do 11 malas a day, I do Shiva Abhisheka, I meditate, I do prayers, okay? I do pranayam, I do yoga, iti. So I'm taking myself as a karta. I do this, I do that, iti. Here the word adi is there, kartritvadi. The adi means etc. And here etc. stands for bhoktritvam also. It brings in the bhokta, meaning the experiencer. So as a human being, we take ourselves to be karta and bhokta, a doer and an enjoyer of various experiences. Last class, we saw that consciousness does not do anything. Just like the king, in the presence of the king, all activities are taking place. In the same way, in the presence of consciousness, everything takes place. So here also the point is the same, that consciousness does not do anything. It is the mind which is engaging in activities. It is the body which is engaging in activities. It's the senses which are engaging in activities. So it's the body, mind, senses which are engaging in activities. None of these belong to Atma. So Shankaracharya in this verse, he is including Bhoktritvam also. Kartritva, Bhoktritva, doership, experiencership, they belong to what? They belong to the Upadhi of the mind. So by now we are all very clear what does Upadhi mean? Upadhi is that which apparently conditions. Okay? Okay, here. Let me bring this up and I can see whether you can see. Yeah. Right? So the orange cloth apparently conditions, makes the crystal look as though it is orange. Therefore, the orange cloth is the upadhi for the crystal. It is making it look like what it is not. Okay? It is making it look orange. In the same way, the manas, the mind, is the upadhi. It is that which apparently conditions the consciousness, not really conditions it. It looks like it conditions the consciousness because the attributes of the mind, okay, are superimposed upon consciousness. Just like the orange of the cloth is superimposed, the attribute of orangeness of the cloth is superimposed upon the crystal, making it appear like it is orange. Not that it really is orange. The crystal doesn't really become orange. Same way, mind appears to condition consciousness, making it appear like it is a karta, making it appear like it is a bhukta. Bhukta means one who is an enjoyer of different experiences. But actually, consciousness does not do anything at all. It is neither a karta nor a bhukta. It is just unchanging presence. Okay? In its presence. Okay? Amazing, is it not? Very difficult also for us to accept. And again, I'll remind you, think again, that to know all the changes, you are the one who knows the changes. To know all the changes, there must be a changeless reference. And it is this changeless reference that Shastra is pointing to, saying that we have taken it totally for granted. We have not even acknowledged its presence. And if you acknowledge its presence, then you get mukti. That's what you get. So acknowledge the presence of the changeless presence of consciousness which is there. Okay. So in the previous class, we looked at the fact that we looked at it is not the mind who makes a decision, not consciousness. Consciousness does not choose. So then you can have a question, who is experiencing them? आप बोल रहे कि consciousness experience नहीं करता है, तो कौन experience करता है? ये mind experiences, ego experiences. In Atmabodha, what did we see? Ego is got 4 functions. No? It has got manas, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. Ahankara is ego. That which is identified with the body-mind sense complex. So that identified entity who is totally dependent on consciousness, no independent, absolutely no independent existence. That entity is the one who is experiencing. Okay? And we think that I am experiencing, that I actually refers to consciousness. Iti. So experience belongs to the mind. Mind has 4 functions. In that, experience belongs to the ego function of the mind. Iti. Okay. So here it is said, kartritvadi kalpyante. The word kalpyante, it is imagined, it is projected, it is superimposed. The kartritvadi, doership and enjoyership are superimposed. They are projected upon this Atma. Iti. Kalpyante, Atmani kalpyante. So this verse is only restating the earlier verse. So being the agent of action and being an enjoyer of different experiences belongs to the mind, and owing to ignorance, ajnanat, both these traits of the upadhi are superimposed on Atma. Okay? Why? Ajnanat, because of ignorance. Or you can say lack of viveka. Okay. So when I say I did it, okay, I do 11 malas. I do Shiva Abhisheka. I do pranayama. I do yoga. I meditate. I pray. All very nice activities, very sattvic activities. Iti. When I say I did it, what is the ultimate meaning of the pronoun I? Ultimate meaning of the pronoun I is not the ego. It is one's essential nature as consciousness. Iti. So I is a pronoun. Pronoun means it has to refer to something. Okay? Okay. So what is it referring to? What is the ultimate reference of this pronoun I? Ultimate reference of the pronoun I is consciousness. So primarily I is referring to this Amala, Nitya Shuddha consciousness. Iti. Only secondarily, I can refer to the ego, which is identified with the body-mind sense complex. So once we really understand this, and we really understand Bhagwan is everything, because Bhagwan is this consciousness, the divine is this consciousness, and then the ego can only be an instrument of that consciousness. There is no personal agenda left, You can only be an instrument. That's all. Iti. Ego will be there even for a wise person. Enlightened ego is there. And that ego is an instrument of Ishvara. Iti. Ordinarily, people are not instruments of Ishvara. They are full, they think themselves to be a separate entity totally. But here it is recognized that there is no such separate entity at all. And then now what to do? As consciousness, one is Purna, and then the ego becomes just an instrument for Ishvara. Iti. Okay. So usually we don't say I am a body, we say I have a body, So that I there is referring to consciousness primarily. So the first part of the verse is saying that traits like being an agent of action or traits like being an enjoyer of experiences belongs to the mind. They are superimposed upon Atma due to ignorance. An example was given, Yatha Ambugate Chandre Chalanadi. Okay. Supposing you have a pot of water and and now you put it outside on a moonlit night. This time it's the moon. Okay. So the moon gets reflected in that water. Now you shake that water. You shake that pot little bit. What happens? Ripples will come on the water. And when the ripples come on the water, it looks like the moon is moving. In Rishikesh, we can see this very clearly when, it's Poonam. Then we see the reflection of moon on Gangaji. Very clear to see the ripples. It looks like the moon is moving over there. Ite. So just like the movement of the ripples of water is superimposed on the moon, in the same way, these ripples of what in the water represent the vrittis in the mind, and those vrittis are superimposed upon Atma. Iti. Okay? Okay. And of course, in the example we saw 2 classes before, that the pot represents the body, the water represents the Sukshma Sharira or the mind. Okay. Okay, so all these anxiety, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, all these are occurring in the mind. They are mental ripples. And the consciousness that we are primarily is utterly unaffected by these mental ripples. It's a different question that why do these mental ripples, negative ones, why do they come? Because of old impressions. When one was ignorant, lot of impressions took place, and those impressions are getting triggered. And therefore, these emotions come up. But with proper sadhana, first come to know what you are, learn what is Viveka. Doesn't mean difficult emotions will go away. Just like that, just because you came to know some Vedanta, nahi, kuch nahi hoga. But uski jo sting hai na, the burning of the emotion will go away. And over a period of time, living a life of sadhana, okay, proper attitudes, with all the sadhanas, japa, everything in place, your pranayam, japa, all this is in place, and the proper attitudes, and shravana, manana, nididhyasana, then all these ripples become almost non-existent. Thoda thoda, bahut halka hote hain. Now we look at this. Rage cha sukha dukkadi buddhau satyam pravartate. Sushupto nasti tannashe tasmad buddhestu natmanaha. So, buddhau satyam. Buddhau, when the intellect is present, then what happens? Raga, ichcha, sukha, dukkhadi pravartate. Then attraction, desire, pleasure, pain, etc. All these are present. So when the buddhi is present, when the mind is present, when the antakarana is present, is manifest in its manifest form, then all these are present. Okay? Then what does he say? Tannashe sushuptau nasti. Tannashe is buddhi nashe. Meaning, when the mind is not there in manifest form, when the buddhi is not there in manifest form, as in sleep, in dreamless sleep, deep sleep, then these raga, ichcha, sukha, dukkhadi, nasti, they are not there. Okay? Therefore, he is bringing in a logic this time. No, there is no example for the first, after a long time, we are seeing no example. That means what? When mind is present, all this sukha dukkhadi are present. When mind is absent, as in deep sleep, sukha dukkhadi are not there. What is there? Consciousness continues to shine. Therefore, this Sukha Dukkhadi, they belong to the mind, not to consciousness. A logic has been given. Yeah? Okay. So before we look at this verse, I don't need to click now. We must remember what we learned in the past. Like the sun reveals all the activities taking place in the planet, consciousness reveals all the activities of the mind. So mind can be either in waking state, dream state, or dreamless sleep, meaning deep sleep state. And each of these states are illumined by consciousness. Okay? Okay. So in waking and dream, what does consciousness illumine? It illumines the activities that are taking place in the mind, and the activities are of the nature of subject and object. Meaning I am there as a knower, knowing different things. I am the subject, and whatever I know is the object. In dream also, it is the same. Subject-object relationship is present. Okay? In waking and dream sleep. In dreamless sleep or deep sleep state, what does consciousness do? Consciousness continues to be there. And what does it do? It reveals the absence of the subject-object relationship. Because the mind is not there, nothing is there. So it reveals the absence of all activity. It is. Like I always give you the example that supposing in this room, there are many things over here. The light is shining brightly. And you can count all the things which are here. Now suppose, and so in the presence of the light, I can see what is present in the room. Table is there, flask is there, this thing is there, mic is there, computer is there, my Bhagwans are there, everything is there. Now supposing I decide to take everything out of the room. Okay, all the things are taken out of the room. Then what happens? The light is still there. What is the light going to show? The light is going to show the absence of everything, no? That ye room mein kuch nahi hai. That is what the light is going to show. Iti. So in the same way, consciousness is always present. And where in deep sleep, when the mind becomes absent and there is no activity of the mind, the consciousness reveals the presence of absence of everything. Okay? Iti. So like the sun, the consciousness continues to be there at all times. In case of the sun, in case of the sun, even if a dark cloud comes and obscures it, sun is there, a dark cloud came and as though covered it. But does the sun stop shining? Doesn't stop shining, no? It is still present. In deep sleep, that's what happens. The mind goes away and looks, like it's like total darkness there. But the consciousness continues to shine, revealing the absence of the presence of anything over there. Okay? So consciousness never ceases to illumine the mind. In waking dream, it illumines all the activities of the mind. And in dreamless sleep, deep sleep, it illuminative. Like in waking and dream, the presence of various vrittis are there. You can hear me, right? Said something about my connection, that's why, yeah. So the presence of various vrittis like attachment, or attraction, desire, pleasure, pain, all that will be there. And tannashe, when the mind resolves into itself, when it goes into unmanifest condition, nashe, you usually think nash means destruction, but here we are not talking about destruction. We're talking about the mind going into unmanifest state in deep sleep. At that time, none of these are there. Attraction, sukha dukkhadi, nothing is there. Iti. But the consciousness continues to be there. So what is being pointed out is, since consciousness is there all the time, if the vrittis really belong to consciousness, then in deep sleep also we should have seen them. Because consciousness is there, then they should have been there. But in deep sleep, we don't see them. We see them only when the mind is present. Therefore, these kind of vrittis belong to the mind. They do not belong to consciousness. This is a very, very important logic. Okay? Okay. Whom do they belong to? They belong to the mind. Because it's your mind that is present in waking and dream, and it's your mind that is not present in deep sleep. So this establishes that all these experiences belong to the mind or the buddhi, okay, but not to consciousness, okay. Therefore, Sankaracharya says, Tasmat buddhehe natu atmanah, okay. Tasmat, they belong to buddhi. What is they? Raga, Ichha, Sukhadi. They belong to buddhi or manaha, natu atmanaha. They do not belong to the atma. That means what? Atma is asangaha. Asanga means it's unassociated, not associated with the activities of the body or mind. Sangha or association is between vrittis and the mind, or I would say vrittis and the ego. But there is no sangha, no association, no attachment, okay, between the vrittis, these experiences, and consciousness. In other words, our consciousness remains unborn, unchanging, unlimited, vast, perfect, complete, full, no matter what the experiences are taking place in the mind and in the body. It remains just the same in all the three states. And that's why we call it as the inner divinity. It is the inner divinity. It is the Lord. Okay? This consciousness is the Lord. Ever the same, very pure and untouched, and yet enlivening and illumining all the activities of the mind. Okay? With that, we can stop. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So see you at 6:30. Okay. Om Hari Om Tat Sat.